something on the sign that looks a little bit like possibly snow. So there is the Swiss dot, French dot stencil, but it's very uniform, but still it kind of gives you that idea. It's very stylistic, geometric, symmetrical, and so that's an option. So if you've got like a little polka dot, Swiss dot, then this is, that's a stencil I created. And they are, I affectionately call these my snow blobs. So those are going to pop up a little bit bigger. And if you're doing the letters in white and you're doing the background in white, that might be too much. Like this might need to go in a light blue if you're doing big splotches of white in the back. If you're using like this, you could use this in the Grecian blue, which is the shade color. So having white accents stenciled in the background, then your words probably need to be like a baby blue or something and not a solid white. Okay. Then there's a couple of stencils from Lori Speltz that I like as well. Let's see. I think that's a two-part one. So those have stars in them too, which might be, like, it'd be okay. I wouldn't want the stars, but I would go and randomly use the smaller snowflakes. And same with this. I think that the larger snowflakes are okay for that. So that's another kind of thing you can do. And then she also has this stencil, which is $2.85. And she's got this little train, so you could use the smaller ones, or you could use the combination, and you just move it around until you get the design you want on the background. So a lot of different options for the snowman sign on stencils. I just wanted to give you some ideas. Okay, so I've made an executive decision to go with this stencil. And I could stay all small, which would be cute. Or I can have a mixture of larger and smaller snowflakes. So see, I haven't really made an executive decision yet because I still don't know what I want. The little tiny snowflakes in the background. It's kind of interesting. You don't get it that much. So, all right, so I got my Snow White on my stencil brush. You don't want it to be too wet going down because you don't want it to leach out of your stencil. So, because it's particularly wet right now, let me just still get some more off. Just go very light. And you don't necessarily have to make it, of course, solid snowflakes unless you want it to be that way. This brush is very wet. I am hoping it is not leaching underneath. If it does, I will just paint over. Okay. Okay, that's not bad. So I'm getting, it's not fully, I didn't want it to be, so that one did leach. The others are okay because I kind of want it to be somewhat primitive. So maybe not all the snowflakes are fully formed. So I'm going to try to get some of these off the edge. So a design principle, why you get some of these off the edge, is for flow purposes, so that not all of your snowflakes are trapped. So if you just have the snowflakes in here and you don't show any movement of them going off the sides, then it's like graphically your snowflakes are trapped. So that's why you want some of your art to go off edges. It gives you a sense of movement and flow. Okay. Certainly it would be faster to use large and small snowflakes, but I just kind of like this kind of delicate look of the snowflakes. So again, I'm not trying to make these solid. These are suggestions of snowflakes in the background. Okay, so I'm going to turn my stencil because I didn't really want these to be an identical match to the pattern. So let's, and I need some of them to go off. So let's try this. See what this looks like. Okay, probably need something there, right there. So I'm going to go back and shade because the shade should be on top of the snowflakes. It doesn't have to be, but I'm just going to lightly shade and kind of send these back a little bit. There are the Hello Winter words, and I made another executive decision. Instead of light blue, I'm going to go back to doing the Snow White. And you can just brush these on, you can sponge it on, and I'm going to use the roller. The roller just makes for fast application, and it is good coverage, and it creates a little texture all at the same time. Sponging does a similar thing, it's just not quite as fast as this. So I got my mini roller, I got my plastic bag. I don't wash out there's certain colors that I keep, I have rollers for dedicated to it. So I have the whites. You have to be careful though. Sometimes when they start to get dry, you'll have paint that wants to chip off and get in your work. So once you have that happening, you just have to throw the roller application out. But if you're using a color you don't normally use, like a white or a buttermilk, or a black, then you would have to wash them out. And I don't necessarily like to do that, having all that paint, you know, go down the drain. I don't like to do that. So I mostly use the rollers for paints that I'm using pretty regularly as base coats. So the other thing with words is they have so much cut edges that you're going to get a lot of the tannins that are going to want to come through. So I will sometimes, even after I paint, I'll just go ahead and come back with a fixative or the varnish that I spray on, so like that. And I'm going to get it really nice and juicy here, so it will fall into some of these burnt cut areas and just let it soak in there. There are some products that will kill out tannins as well. Like sometimes I'll use like Kills, K-I-L-L-Z, I think. There's a number of primers, like white primers, that you can use too, and it's mostly an issue where you've got all these cut lines. Snowflakes are another problem because they have a lot of cut lines on them too, and it usually takes a while to really seal them so that they're not leaching out anymore. I'm just going to find my other, yeah, there they are. So I'm going to spray them too. I've already painted them, just so it helps to seal them up a little bit, because they will start to yellow or brown if you're not careful. Kind of have to go slightly extra mile with your letters and anything with a lot of exposed cut edges. So I took these and I have sealed them, sprayed them, trying to get it so you're going to have less of the leaching of the tannins coming out. So, because normally a lot of these I leave dark, but I went in and I mostly painted it. Let's see how that helps. I'm going to use the gingham blue to do some shading to give it some color. And I'm not really going to think too much about like light source. I want it to have a little bit of definition, so if you're a stickler on direction of light source, you know, by all means follow, you know, what you normally do. So I'm just trying to get some frostiness, some blue frostiness on these letters. And I'm not really, like I said, trying to think, oh, well, this light's coming this way or it's going that way. Nope, I'm making it pretty. Okay, there we go. It looks cool and chilly, and everything is, you know, not 100%. I don't want it to be. I want it to have a little bit of primitive feel to it. That was a little heavy there. There you go. That's that sign done, unless you want to come down with, you could do like Payne's Gray there if you wanted to add that element in to make the shading darker. So a Payne's Gray, and that would be a blue gray. But if you like the brightness of this, then I would not come in with the darker shading. Although it will be in this or a similar thing. So I have a different one. This one's got brown tones in it. I think that this would probably work in my window box that's got more gray blue tones in it as opposed to this one with the brown. But since there's vintage antiquing on the window box, I could certainly come back with Payne's Gray. And the snowflakes, normally I don't add any blue onto these, but I don't know, kind of want them to match a little bit. So I'm just going to do some light touches of blue here and there. And they'll be considered, I'm going to kind of keep it towards, well, I guess I'll do it all over. I was going to keep it towards the bottom, but I think, yeah, I might. So the bottom area, when you put them on, you just try to remember to keep the shading towards the bottom. Just a little touch. And then if I want, I can come back with the enchanted shimmer or something, or you can do glitter, or you can do both, or you can leave them white, flat, matte. So I just find it very difficult not to put some kind of shimmer, glimmer, blingy stuff on my snowflakes. I just like that look. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to see what a little bit of darker shade looks like on the sign. I'm nervous about putting it on the words, but let me just see. So that's Payne's Gray. That's Deep Midnight Blue. And that one is Prussian blue. So, I don't know, I kind of like this Deep Midnight Blue. It's Payne's Gray, Deep Midnight Blue. I'm gonna try just a little bit. If I don't like it, I can just kind of wipe it off, maybe. Yeah, I do like that. I do. A lot of it is not going to show because it's going to end up being covered. So if you want your shading on your sign to show, it will show up on the sides, but the bottom is being covered like this. Scalloped edge, but it will show up on the side. Either that, or if you want it to show up more, you have to walk the shade in to the center. So everything I'm doing here at the bottom really isn't going to show unless I walk it in. How much of that just goes away? Let me see. Yeah, so you are just, well, you can see a little bit of it there, but I could definitely walk some of it in if I felt like I needed it more shaded. It's okay. Fine. So, like if you did a little bit of the darker shade at the bottom of the letters, just a little bit here and there. Let's see how strong it is. No, I'm not really sure it's necessary. I'll just, since I started, I don't know if I like it or not, but I do it, so then you can make a decision on whether or not you want to do it. And if you're like, why did she do that? You know, then don't do it. It saves you from having to experiment with it and decide, oh my goodness, why? Don't do it. But then you might be like, oh, I like that. It's so subtle. And again, that was Deep Midnight Blue, which I use a lot as a blue shader. I actually prefer it over Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray is so strong. Payne's Gray is kind of nice, you know, when you're trying to drop in a deep shadow somewhere. Like a deep background shadow, but I just think it's almost too dark for other stuff. It's just a little bit of something extra there. Okay, I think that's pretty much done. Oh no, yeah, it's done. It's done. Stop. Don't do anything more to it. Okay. I'm going to put some enchanted top coat on the snowflakes. So the blue will give you kind of a light iridescent of blue, and the shimmer has crystals in it. So normally I use this, but because there's lots of blue in this piece, I'm going to live dangerously. You can kind of see that's what the effect I'm going to get. And then while it's wet, I'm also going to add in some crystal glamour dust, which is basically glitter. So since this dries pretty fast, I'm just going to sprinkle a little on. Perfect. So if you love your bling, that's perfect. I don't want the glitter to be super heavy and caked on. I just wanted it to be a light covering of the glitter. And you really don't have to have the glitter on because you have this lovely iridescence. But I like everything super, super blingy. So, there's that. And then oops, that didn't help. Actually, there's so much glitter on this paper towel, I'm just going to turn this over and pick it up. Excellent. All right, that's all that is required. We just introduced Deep Midnight Blue as a little bit of an element of shading. So we're going to continue with that. We're not going to switch to like Payne's Gray or something. We're going to stick with the deep Midnight Blue. And we are going to shade the scarf. Okay, so this goes like that. I was trying to do it like that, but I think it actually goes like that. But honestly, I don't think it would matter. So something like that. So if you did it where that was in the foreground, yeah. Okay. So shading with Deep Midnight Blue. That'd be covered, but I'm still gonna do it. I'll bring this shade out here a little bit more because this is going to be covering that, so I just want to make sure. But that's my first go at shading. So these are the little coal buttons, and I am also going to do this, the Deep Midnight Blue, just for a bit of continuity. And then, because these are Deep Midnight Blue, you can shade them with black and then highlight them with a lighter color. If you start with black, then there's nothing to shade. So having something that's in your color range that you've already used that is lighter than black gives you the ability to actually use black for shading. There you go. Okay, so like that swings out pretty far. It swings out like way out. Do back-to-back shading there to get rid of that line that I had created. So of course, you know, you could do like stripes in here, or do a little pattern of something. Like if I, but if you do that, then you do need to come back and shade over the top of it. So like if I wanted to take some of the gingham blue and just do some little stripes. Another coat of this on. Okay, so liner brush. All right. Let me just try this one. Okay, so this will be colored. So. I'm going to try some dry brushing on this piece here. So I'm using the gingham blue, which is what we use to do the stripes. So I want them to be just a little bit more, I want the stripes to be a little bit more diffused, not quite so strong. So I'm just coming back. So I see an area where I can use a little bit more shading, just right underneath. Use more than that. That's too wet. So I like to pull the highlighted shade, the highlighted color across the top. So like that. It creates an interesting effect. So it creates a highlight. So in lieu of like floating, dragging that across the edge. And because of the way that I rolled the color on, that I end up getting interesting texture. There we go, we focused in. So sometimes I use color washes to kind of quasi send something that you're working on that might be like, it's really in your face and it doesn't have enough subtleness. I will sometimes use color washes, but also dry brushing works as well. And so the lines don't look so sharp, and it also adds in an extra dimension of color. But, you know, it mutes down, it tones down those lines that were very sharp and kind of, you know, very primitive, which I want a primitive look, but maybe not that primitive, so that just really helps. Oops. While your brush, your dry brush, still has paint in it, and you haven't like washed it out, because you don't want to wash out your dry brushes until you're done with them. They don't work very well when they're wet. So these are little coal buttons, and so we're gonna dry brush some little highlights with that gingham. This is the gingham blue that we used already. So we're just gonna, and we could have used the Grecian blue too, but I wanted it to be a true highlight. So this is the gingham blue. Okay. And then we're gonna get some lamp black and shade. But I wanted to do those before my dry brush went into the water. Gosh. So when you get ready to shade and highlight these, make sure that you have them the correct way. So they fit that direction. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is I want to introduce just some Snow White and go back over some of this with, I'm going to take my dirty brush and a bit of Snow White. Okay. So you're going to keep adding white until you get to a color that you want as a highlight. Just trying to get lighter and lighter blue. And you're going back over some of these areas. Layering up the color, that was a little much, but okay. And then I'm going to go in, go even lighter. And of course, in dry brushing, some people I know use alcohol sanitizing gel or something to clean out their brushes so they don't have to put them in water. But this is the traditional way of cleaning your brush and moving from one color to another. And sometimes you use the color that was in there, like the gingham blue, to layer levels of color. So, because all of those colors, it's not like you're hiding. If I come back with this color on top of this color, I'm not hiding this shade. I'm enhancing it. So that's why you do that. Sort of build. And I'm going to go one more round, get closer to white, but it will still have a tinge of blue in it, and that's my last bit of highlighting. There we go. And I'm going to bring this back. I'm just going to add in some of that there too, my scarf. Okay. It's hard not to stop. Okay, I'm gonna try to stop. I'm gonna use Irish moss. You may want to tone down your trees. I don't like toning down my trees. I'm going to try the Irish moss and dry brush. And I'm going to add in some lighter color. And then afterwards I'll shade. So with these two pieces, underneath we had Warm Sunset, and then I came back with a sponge and a mixture of Warm Sunset with cadmium, and I lightly sponged more towards the top, and then I added mostly cadmium at the top. We're going to come back with Snow White at the end to kind of look like snow. This was base coated with cadmium, a little shading of the Warm Sunset. I came back with a little bit of a sponge of gold metallic. And again, everything is going to have a bit of dry brushed Snow White at the end. Now, this is light buttermilk, and it's time to lighten it up. So we're going to use Snow White and do a color wash. So I've got my juicy brush, so one that holds a lot of moisture, and I'm pulling the paint down into my water, and I'm just going to slap this on. You can use a paper towel if you feel like the liquid is pooling and leaving marks that you don't want. Okay, I'm going to add another round. Just slap it on again. Alright, I'm going to do one more. You can also lighten by dry brushing, and you can use a combination of color washes and dry brushing. Okay, I'll go back over this. Okay. We're going to bring back the gingham blue to do the shading outlining. Go back around in a second, but I'm going to grab a cheek color, something, okay. Vintage pink. That's one of my favorite cheek colors, but you know, you can use Coral Cloud. I mean, there's so many pinks and different tones you can use, but I'm going to use that one. Okay, and a dry brush. I like using an oval when I'm doing cheeks. Okay, so it's about right in here. And I'm not going to worry too much if this is too strong, because I'm coming back with a color wash of white again. And that will send some of these bright cheeks back. Okay. So I'm going to come back another round of the gingham blue. There we go. Okay, so when you do the color wash, you just have to make sure everything is very dry. So all of this gingham blue needs to be dry. I'm going to do it again. So if you want to send any of it back further, you can kind of dry brush stipple. Until you're happy. And of course we have to do some black eyes, and we can also come in with a marker paint pen right into those little X's for the mouth. So let's see what I've got here. So this is not a paint pen, but the shuttle arc marker is permanent. It stays put where it's supposed to stay put. You could just do a stylus. I might come back and do a stylus with the eyes because the marker's not wanting to be as solid as I'd like. The marker's easier for these crosses though. Okay, so a little bit of black, not black. I'm going to use a stylus to improve those eyes. Oh, there's a stylus. It's a pretty big stylus too. Yeah, much nicer. Just need it to be a little bit more solid. And I was not getting that with the marker. And you could certainly come back in with a liner, but it's a lot more finicky to do this, to come in on the crosses. But if you feel like you're not getting the deeper color of black with the marker, that definitely helps. Excellent. Excellent. That was unintentional. Okay. Now we need to add in some snow white highlights with the dry brush. So we were using this a little while ago. So we're going to go over some of the areas that we've already done highlights, but now these are going to be more like snow highlights. So we've done those. The star needs a little bit. Could, if you wanted, instead of just dry brushing, there's nothing to stop you from using like a glitter snow, a more textured snow if you felt like you wanted that. So that's really kind of up to you. Might blend that a little bit more. Give it all a frosted sort of look with a super dry brush. So there's hardly any paint left in there, but just enough to glaze over the trees and totally blend it. So, but certainly if you wanted it to be more texture, you could lay on some snow. So this is what the trees looked like when I did the dry brushing of the snow. I do have this love color, and I'm going to add that on to create a little glittery texture, because it has glitter in it. It's pretty cool stuff. So I just wanted to add that to the areas that have snow. So just to provide a little extra interest. You also, if you want it to be even more glittery, you can add in some glamour dust on top of it and it will dry into place. Although you can start gluing the smaller pieces together, which I like to do. So I put all the smaller pieces together first before I add the bigger pieces to the bigger pieces. So I will lay that aside and start gluing. Just trying to line up those coal buttons onto the engraving lines. It looks like that's pretty close. Okay. that is it. That is the Hello Winter Window Insert Snowman. Thank you so much for watching. This is Kathy McAllister, Teawife Creations. Appreciate all of you. Bye.